Yo, everybody, the story about what Naruto Jinchuriki of the Venom the movie chapter 2. Let's start, guys. Let's start.
In the classroom, the Konoha teams were introduced to an adult genin named Kabuto, who then explained that he had done the exams enough times that he had acquired information on how they worked and of the contestants. This of course prompted Sasuke to ask, "Give me information on all the powerfulest people from each village." Get himself as the strongest in Konoha, but that didn't happen as the most powerful new genin was Naruto, and the one who was the most powerful outright was Hyuga N. Flawlessly executing the plan of pissing off the Uchiha and his master next body, in order to lure him to Oto. Kabuto listed off some of the skills, missing the info on the Rinnegan for Naruto and Neji, as well as the missions performed by the latter, excusing the S-rank missions, all while enjoying the red-faced reaction of the Uchiha. After that, Ibiki showed up and the test was on. It had lasted 5 hours, and during that time several students were caught cheating, due to their method of info gathering be incredibly obvious and downright dumb. Dojutsus were used but weren't classed as cheating. After the 5 hours were up, Ibiki gave the final question, which resulted in elimination 3 more teams, before Naruto spoke up and gave a heartening speech to embolden the others, which allowed them to pass. Once the written test was finished, the Chunin hopefuls were introduced to the next proctor, Mitarashi Anko, whom went on to moving them all to the Forest of Death and explained, "Okay Gakis, your task is simple. You just have to make it to the center of the forest, where there is a tower, and along the way you need to collect opposite that you'll be issued presenting 2 scrolls with the tampergraphs of heaven and earth, because you will need both to pass," pausing to breath and allow the info to sink. Before adding, "Now if you lose your assigned scroll you have not failed, but rather you now must collect both of them and then head for the tower," then finished by saying, "Test last for 5 days and that the land will provide food for you, but be careful." A minute later, Naruto and Haku had been issued their scroll and gate, where they were now waiting for the start of the exams, which Naruto morphing into his Venom form and Haku adjusting her Senbon launcher, as after 15 minutes, Anko says, "Okay, in 20 minutes the gates will open," over the speaker system. 1 minute and 50 seconds passed, and the genin teams were now getting frustrated, caused by how long it took to start, and then the speaker sounds, 10 seconds left until go, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 2, 1 and go. As all gates opened and admitted the ninja into the forest. Within the forest, Naruto and Haku decided to use the method least resistance and just headed straight for the tower, so they could just ambush another team and enter the tower. Traversing the trees one by one, Naruto swung via his webbing with Haku in his arms, as his swinging distance was longer than her jumping distance, before Naruto's spid senses went off, causing him to pause and jump back one tree as the original tree he had landed on had exploded in a hail of bark and wood chips. Once the wood storm was Naruto and Haku, whom Naruto had placed on her feet, were greeted by the snide comment of, "Well, lucky us, we get to rid the world of another blasphemous Kekkei Gen user and an Uzumaki as well. Oh, the Mizukage will rewards us with Jonin ranks for this," before lecturously at Haku curvy form, before it turned to a sneer as Haku informs are dealing with 2 Kekkei Genkei users, Haijutsu, Joki-Hari, forming a single-handed seal, making the moisture in the air condense and form small needles of ice, which show and cause the now known Kiri shinobi to scatter. But Naruto was far from idle, as when Haku fired off her jutsu, he conjured his psionic energy sword and slashed at his opponent, commanding Kokura no Kumo no Dansu, which was when spiders of mental energy crawled out of the sword welded by Naruto. As the spiders approached their targets they grew in size the longer it took them to on the targets, until a relatively small-sized spider finally latched onto a Kiri ninja and explodes, sending the ninja back into a tree and knocking him out. This set off a reaction that made the rest of the Kiri ninjas scatter more and the spider to grow more. After an hour, the spider were now the size of cows, which was when they stopped running after their prey and just swiped their legs at them, hitting their target and blowing up, taking the Kiri ninjas with them. Once the last Kiri ninja was finished, Naruto then went through the property of the knocked out ninja, finding the scroll his team need and as well as extras, before retrieving and resumed to swing for the central tower. While in another portion of the forest, Team 7 was against the walls, as they fought with an extremely flexible ninja whom had already taken down Sai, the third member of Team 7. I've gone over the last chapter but had references to who's on Team 7 aside for Sasuke and Sakura before he had the shoulder of Uchiha Sasuke, causing a Sharingan-like mark to appear and made Sasuke pass out. It was then that flexible ninja decided to end Sakura, but could not as Proctor showed up and drove him off. It was glossed over, but this is Orochimaru. Do you expect him to be slow in a fight? After driving off Orochimaru, Anko and the team she arrived with transported them to the central tower, declaring that they passed, before sending them to bed. Earlier when Team 7 arrived, Team 11 descended from the tree line, with one final swing, unharmed and oddly refreshed, before headed inside and using their scrolls, they summoned their sensei Zabuza, whom growled his congrats and sent to the mess hall for lunch, when Naruto's stomach growled. As Team 11 was eating, they began to notice other teams arriving, like the Kumo teams and the Suna sibling with two other Suna teams, before they started to see the Araviwa ninjas, and one particular Aiwa group had a beautiful woman her teammates had identified as Kuratsuchi. After Team Black Earth arrived, it became apparent that Konoha team will be arriving anytime soon, so they just joined the teams that were there in just a generalized social point of view. The day then went to night and Konoha had yet to see a second passing team, aside from the stealthy arrival of Team 7, when it became time to knock off for the night. Welcome the new day. The new day dawned with the sound of an argument that cut through the entire tower, waking all the sleeping teens that weren't already up and as Foons already you. Well, they jumped out of their skins to the screech of a pink-haired banshee, as she was told that her Sasuke-kun was not the first arriving genin, but Na and Haku were. The next few days continued as thusly, before Naruto was dived upon by Yamanaka Ino, who had just arrived and passed with her team, the current Ino Shikacho, as Shish affectionately cuddled up with him, much to the shock of her true team members, Nara Shikamaru and Akamaiki Choji, but she ignored them and continued to cuddle him teddy bear. An hour later and they were joined by Team 8, where much to Kiba anger, Hinata then joined Ino in cuddling Naruto, whom kissed her and caused her to faint. Fainting, Hinata awoke later to find her head in Naruto's lap and turned herself cherry red. 5 days have passed and now the passing teams are lined up in front of the Hokage, with their team sensei, as the Hokage addressed, "Congratulations for passing," as Su overlooks the teams. The Suna team was looking slightly uncomfortable, well 3 of the 4 were, before she continued, now due to the amount of passing individuals, we are to have a preliminary matches, because there are too many of you and with the risk of a stamina freak, insert Naruto and Lee sneezing, or heaven forbid smart people try out-strategize each other, to the sneezes of Shikamaru and Tamari, and we cannot have the final round last for days, before she was interrupted by another Jonin, who finished the speech off, while Anko ordered a screen to be lowered. Once the speech was finished, the screen blinked into life and 2 names had started to blur before stopping and displaying the names, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto vs. Uchiha Sasuke, with the last name causing the whole tower's populace to go deaf, as a pink-haired banshee screeched, "Baka, you better lose to Sasuke-kun," much to the of all there. After reorientating themselves all genin but Naruto and Sasuke, who of which the former showing respect for his opponent by slipping into a wide-legged sta. With his left arm stretched out, hovering over his left leg and his right arm, positioned level with his head, fist clenched. But Sasuke, however, simply stood in an at-ease stance, with no real sign of treating Naruto as a threat, though he did have a scowl on his faces, that Sakura swooned, Sa-kun, over and over. A minute later, the referee Genma asked, "Ready?" which he got a nod from Naruto and A.H.N. of Sasuke, knowing it was the best he is getting, commands, Hajime, causing Sasuke to run his mouth off with, "Dobi, just give up, the Uchiha can only be beaten by other Uchiha," in an arrogant tone, making the Obs frown and Gekko to groan. In response Naruto simply rolled his eyes and stood at the ready, which really irritated Sasuke, as the latter dashed forward to deliver a punch and missed, when Naruto used flexibility to quickly bend backwards out of the way of the fist and then transitioned it into a backwards handstand-style backflip, using the momentum to dig his feet into Sasuke's chin and launch the emo into the air, with a backward spin. Somehow righting himself from the spin, Sasuke landed himself on the wall behind him and then J. Forward, flashing through several hand seals, arriving on the tiger seal, Kaden, Chokaryuka no Jutsu, and breathed out a gigantic dragon of orange fire, that raced towards. And as it hit Naruto, Sasuke yells, Dai Dobi. Cackling at his flame-engulfed target, Sasuke gloated and celebrated his victory, before the sound of heavy footsteps, within the fires were heard. Walking out of the fire W. Figure, seemingly made of magma with lances of fire, arcing between the cracks in the rocky plates and its eyes glowed a powerful blazing orange, after walking out of the F. Figure looked over the duck-haired emo with an akin deadpan and said with a familiar, you know Tem, you should never use a jutsu when you have not mastered it, b. While it could be powerful it means jack without control, as he then raised his arms and said, let us show you, Kaden, Saramanda no Yoroi, as the arcing flames, formed into a spectral dragon, sea dragon aspect from Skyrim, Dragonborn. When the armor was formed, the magma figure lashed forwards and swings his fist into Sasuke's stomach, singeing his shirt and charring, then he switched the punch to a plow move to ram Sasuke into the ground, with the jolt of the attack knocking Sasuke out. Once Sasuke was out cold, Naruto who he revealed was lava figure, when he receded. Lava form, stood down knowing he had won and there was no point continuing, before heading upstairs to his girls. On the other side of the room, Naruto spied a very Orochimaru-like man looking at him with contempt and power hunger. Before noticed someone whom made his eyes wide. He saw familiar face of a friend he had in Oto, one of the only three he had, and swore that he'd rescue, when he had the chance and mission to do so. The girl that caught Nai's was Tsuchi-kin, C main canon for appearance, and when she felt someone looking at her, she became alert and looked around. It took a bit but she was able to z on the feeling, and when she did, her eyes widened and began to form tears. Naruto-kun, she thought, as she response was, Kin-chan, mentally. While Naruto and Kin were having their moment, the board flashed through several names and landed on, Nara Shikamaru of Konoha vs. Kingu Roxas of Iowa, which yield. Shikamaru is the winner, whom used the shadows created by Roxas' earth jutsu to extend the reach of his shadow, to catch him from behind, and then Shikamaru moved into a position to smack his head on the wall, so hard that it had caused cracks and made Roxas shout, I yield. After Shikamaru's match, Kin was up again Kankuro and W. Because the former shot Sanbon at his true self, which paralyzed him and made his seen body flop to the ground like a string-cut puppet. Hours of boring matches later and Genma had announced, okay Genin, there's still too many, to the 16 ninjas that had passed, before saying, so we will be having an it. Round of preliminaries, the screen flaring to life once more to show Inuzuka Kiba vs. Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, so if all except for the chosen return to the balcony and proceed. The fights from here are from the canon, bar Sasuke vs. Kabuto's teammate, and the Neji Hinata fight ended with Neji winning but getting disqualified for not Stoppuin ordered. Also Kin and Shikamaru did not face each other but rather cannon fodder from Aim and Ino tied with Kuretsuchi. 10 hours later, the second round of prelims were finished and the numbers were acceptable for the third round, which is now that we find Naruto, Kin, Gaara, Dosu, Shinotamari and Shikamaru, waiting in a line-up to be given a number and shown who will be their opponents. The number was given by have the genin drawn a number from. And the numbers drawn were 1 for Naruto, 2 for Gaara, 3 for Dosu, 4 for Shikamaru, 5 for Tamari, 6 for Shino and 7 for Kin, which made the matchups, Gaara vs. Dosu, Shikamaru vs. Tamari, Shino vs. Kin and Naruto vs. Gaara, Dosu. Okay Genin, you have your numbers, know whom you are fighting and now you have a month to prepare, whether it be to learn new move or refine old ones, so use this well and make sure to give your audience a good show, announced Tsunade at the end of the matchup phase, before dismissing the group to their own devices. The ninja gone, only Naruto and Kin remained, which the latter immediately latched on to the former and cried her eyes out at been reunited with the one she loved, as the former embraced and said, sorry for leaving you, before kissing her on the lips, as he shushined them to the Senju compound. Appearing in the Senju compound in a cloud of dust and webbing, Naruto and Kin separated from their kiss and then Naruto showed her to the guest rooms where she woo. Staying now. After settling Kin in, Naruto then seeked out Zabusa for training in the final exam, while already at the hospital, Haku was already learning to better herself the tutorship of Shizune, with medical herbs and healing jutsu. Back to Naruto as he found him talking aggressively with his perverted godfather, about what he could have Naruto training, but Naruto was having none of that and called, "Oh. Hey Arrow Senin, leave, we don't want or need your training," silently enjoying the tick mark that had formed over his right eye. Insulted, Jiraiya yelled, "Stop calling me th." Before explaining, "Look brat, I had promised sensei that I would train you when you were going to take your Chunin exam," but his explanation was halted when Naruto his mouth shut and said, "You also promised our parents that you would protect and raise us, but looked how that promise turned out." As Jiraiya now fought to get the Wii off, once it was off Jiraiya said, "But I could teach you summoning in the Rasengan," but his response was, "What? Like this? Kuchio's no jutsu," as he bit his thumb, raw. Threw hand signs and slammed his palm to the ground. After slamming his palm down, Naruto was engulfed in powdered snow, and before the perverted sage knows it, he was staring up the muzzle of a crystal silver wolf, which crystalline looked to it. While standing on the shoulders was Naruto with a smug grin, as he built blue energy into his hand, making it spin and dance chaotically, which he widened his grin at the look of shock on Jiraiya's face. 2 minutes later, the wolf Naruto was standing on looked around and found no combatant, asked, "Hey Naruto, what's deal?" To Naruto as he kneeled down and said, "Sorry Daimaru, I just needed to show my neglective godfather that I don't need or want his training in summoned it. Also tell Ao Sirius Sama that he can tell him, it is time," remembering the request Manda Sama made to Naruto and Daimaru response, "So you're back in Konoha." Before vanishing in another cloud of powdered snow. With nothing to support him, Naruto then dropped down to the ground, landing in a spider-styled perch in front of Jiraiya, whom asked, "You have a contract with the dire wolves?" Shockingly, which was answered by a smirk. The shock from the confirmation, comatose Jiraiya for an hour before he snapped out of it and looked around to Finn, his supposed apprentice, and Zabusa missing, now knowing he has nothing to teach Naruto except for how to use the Kyuubi's chakra better, and realizing that he was free of training needs now, Jiraiya headed straight for the nearest hot spring or swimming hole. Now with Naruto and Zabusa, as they clashed with an almighty clash in training ground 11 and then separated to get some distance, before they both flowed through severe handseals, and they both commanded, "Sweden, Sweryuden no Jutsu, Sweden, Robai Suru Kawanonagare," as Zabusa constructed a Chinese water dragon from a nearby lake. Naruto built a pack of wolves of the same lake water. It was then that both the wolves and the dragon charged at each other. Meanwhile, in the void of the summoning ray, Hydra-stylized blue werewolf appeared out of a cloud of shadow energy, before howling to the white-colored void, and this action caused a plume of venomous purple vapor appear. Within the poisonous vapor was a demonic serpent of an oil-black color. This creature was a basilisk, and his name was Manda. Looking at the leader of the dire woe pact, Manda asked, "For what reason have you summoned me, Ao Sirius?" With the preparations to attack. Looking at the battle-ready state of Manda, Ao Sirius calmed him by saying, "Calm yourself Manda, Naruto-sama says it is time." "Really?" Manda grinned serpentine. Getting a nod from all three heads, Manda slaps his tail to the ground and made a scroll appear. This was the Snake Den summoning contract, and it then unrolled, and two from within flashed a silver color before deleting themselves, and the names were Orochimaru and Yakushi Kabuto. Hours later, back in Konoha, Zabusa and Naruto had up their day of training and were now heading to the hospital to pick up Haku, whom had been swamped with patients from both the Chunin exams and living training due. After picking up Haku, Naruto, Haku and Zabusa headed to the restaurant district for dinner and then headed back to the Senju compound to rest for the rest of the night. Team 11 was sleeping. A secret meeting was taking place in the catacombs of Danzo's not-so-secret route HQ between the forces of the Konoha elders and Orochimaru. As Tover, the new tweaks to the plan as Sasuke, their main player of the invasion, was eliminated from the exams, though Orochimaru had a thought and voice it, "Why don't I Dosu and you can put Sasuke-kun into his spot?" Knowing that Dosu has no purpose in the plan. Looking at the question, Kaharu, Homura and Danzo thought it over and agreed, not knowing that Dosu had already went and got himself killed by Gaara, as he tried to up chances on advancement, dying in the process. Point 2 Shukongo. After 2 weeks of intense training with Zabuza, Naruto was then reversed summoned to the den of the dire wolf pack and the Ao Sirius said, Naruto-sama, it is time to stay our senjutsu training, as he is then startled by Naruto activating the Rinnegan and saying, Hi Ao Sirius Dono, shaking himself, Ao Sirius asked, are you ready? Naru nods, very well, let us begin, and the both summon and summoner head out to the forest surrounding the cave, meeting with Okami Sennin, an old whitish silver wolf who charge of the sage training. Back in Konoha, we find Zabuza seeking out a bar for a power nightcap, knowing his student was in capable hands and would be looking into placing some serious bets on blowing the competition. In another part of the village, the sound of the idiot Dosu made while dying was music to the ears of Gaara as the latter crushed the former in A.T. Sand. In the Senju clan compound, Naruto's girlfriends, fiancés were all cuddled up in Naruto's bed, all wishing they were in his arms. Back at the dire wolf pack den, Naruto was in a web hammock somewhat tossing and turning, due to a sore body. It was time, the stadium was now been filled to the brim with people, both civilian and shinobi alike, with 25% of them been civilians who want to see the demon die first. And cheer, while the rest were those whom Naruto had defended from perverts and gained his heart. In the stadium's battlefield, Naruto, Gaara, Temari, Kin, Shikamaru, Shino, were waiting for the proceedings as a leaf storm whipped up out of nowhere and dispersed, revealing the duck-haired emo, that was Uchiha Sasuke, whom was immediately questioned by the proctor. Genin Uchiha, why are you down here? Ignoring the question, Sasuke lined up with the others and allowed the Anbu WH. Appeared later the say, at the request of the elders, Uchiha Sasuke-sama is taking the place of Kinuta Dosu due to his death during the month prior, as the Uchiha lovers cheered for their loves, Makoto not included. Very well, Genma started, but due to the Hokage reworking the lineup, Naruto will be facing Gaara, and Uchiha Sasuke will face the winner of that match at the end of first round. He continues, before looking around the stadium to see it was full and attention was now on the battlefield before completing his speech, now that everyone seated, Naruto, Gaara, stay here, the rest of head for the observation booth. Up in the stadium, Sakura screeched at the unfairness of her love's fight position. After wincing from the screech, Genma quickly recovered his hearing though it was bleeding slightly, and orders, Hajime, to the fighters, before jumping out of the ring. Call had an immediate effect on the fighters, as Gaara begins his first attack with the command, Suna Tsunami, in a demanding tone, as a tidal wave of sand rose from T. ground and roared towards Naruto, who raised his own hands and gained a magenta butterfly over his head, firing a blast of telekinetic at the wave of sand, making a hole, allowing the sand to pass by harmlessly, to the shock of all present Suna ninjas. Once the sand wave subsided, Naruto looks at Gaara and says, Gaara, if you're going to use the Ikibi's power, then at least be original, like this, as he formed his bow at last part and fire off several psionic arrows in rapid fire succession, all which had hit a wall of a deeply compressed sand, which Gaara had erected to protect himself, but it futile as each arrow hit the same spot and sent the first arrow through the barrier. Once through the barrier, the arrow shot over Gaara's shoulder, when, for the first time ever, been forced to duck to avoid being hit, before Gaara then responded in kind and push his wall construct towards Naruto, but it never hit as Naruto used his magma powers a volcanic rift and it swallowed the sand whole. After swallowing the sand, the rift close and Naruto dashed forward quickly, armed with 2 blades of psionic energy and went for an X slash that was caught by a pair of sand tendrils, which was when Gaara tried his sand tsunami again and failed, when Naruto entered his Atlas form, smelting the sand into glass, which he then psionically blasted him and gained some distance with an aerial shushin. The fight was now going on too long for the Ikibi Jinchuriki to take and was now showing signs of him losing control. Was made visually apparent as sand from all over the battlefield encased Gaara, so that the transformation could begin, much to the horror of Orochimaru, whom given X order to not to until his fight with the Uchiha and that would start the invasion. Knowing what Gaara was trying to do, Naruto tried to stop him first with telepathic blast, which could not get through the yokai enhanced sand sphere, so he tried to blast it. Viscous stream of magma, which worked but the glass quickly shattered and was replaced by more sand. not willing to risk Gaara's life and just opening a rift below the. Naruto goes on to another approach and activates his Rinnegan and slams his palm into the ground, causing a vast amount of tree roots to shoot out and grip tightly to th. Sphere. Once the roots were tightly wrapped, Naruto took a charging pose and drew a palm back. In the palm, the bigots in the crowd's horror formed a 36 centimeters wide ball of spiraling chakra, with arcing green, black, silver, red and white lightning. After fully forming the Rasengan, Naruto morphed his armor on and charged forth, covering a distance of 250 meters between Naruto and Gaara. Naruto was forced to stop when the bounded sphere broke open and released the newly awakened Aikibi. With Aikibi now awake, Naruto was forced to abandon his plan and jump to avoid the stamping front paw of the Tanuki. After land from his dodge, Naruto then shushined B. Another 100 meters, where he then formed a new plan, a plan that involved him running through several hand sign, before slamming both hands to the ground, and from his hand sprouted a web of kanji, before a plume of dust rose up. Once the dust settled, Naruto was now shown to be standing by the sides of a large blue werewolf with wolf head, gauntlets over his claws, and a horned, teal-armored white lion, which was the same size of the werewolf. These were the bosses of the dire wolves pack and the dire Leonao Sirius and Koshiki. After they summoned, both Koshiki and Sirius saw what was happening and said to Naruto, "Okay Naruto, ready to save the day?" To which the answer was, "Totally, for Agent Venom." After the answer, both Sirius and Koshiki charged at Shukaku, tackling the Biju out of the stadium and forced the spectators to watch what was happening on a large screen TV as Naruto and Genma jumped after them. As the spectators watched the screen, they observed Naruto and Genma as they made sure the battle left no extensive damage to the structures and other buildings. Most of the bigots and some perverts watched the screen still hoping to see the demon die, despite what N was doing. Those who were precious to Naruto watched in fear as Naruto swoops into many people's houses and evacuate homeowners of whom didn't show up to the Aren't Stadium. In the section of the village, the summons and Shukaku were fighting. Naruto and Genma had just finished delivering the last member of the civilians who were evacuated, was the heads of the Haruno clan, whom of which were the biggest, arrogantest bigots towards Naruto, but luckily for Naruto, he was not transporting them to the stadium. Shown by his bleeding ears. Before Naruto then joined the battle, as the summons finally got a good hold on the Biju and given Naruto an opening to plow the reformed Rasengan through the stomach of Shukaku, and with the mixing of the energy of the jutsu's impact combined, the exhausted yokai of Shukaku, drained away at his control and sand construct, just broke apart and crumbled to the ground. When Shukaku crumbled to the ground, the Suna shinobi watching in fear, as their most powerful weapons loses, and what remained was the unconscious form of Gaara, of the Kazekage and Suna no Akuma. When the sand fell revealing Gaara, Naruto was not going to take any chances and made a Kumo handseal, to allow a burst of silvery webbing to encase Gaara tightly to keep him from attacking again. Outside the village walls, Otokage's prized Jonin completed their preparations and began the summoning ritual, when they used the sign of the rampaging Aikibi as a signa, which caused them to command Kuchio's no jutsu, but nothing happened. When nothing happened, the main leader and summoning, he glared at Team Within Thog, who skipped a step, completely forgetting the fact that Orochimaru had applied a complex Fuinjutsu array to them, which completely sync up their chakra movements and precision, when the five of them were performing the same tasks. Within the cage box, the disguised Orochimaru watched on in irritation and anticipation, as his plans fall to the wayside, first with the loss of Sasuke again in the Sekon. When Gaara transformed into the Aikibi too earlier, and now he had to move his plans up and strategize on the fly. So with that in mind, Orochimaru discreetly gave the sig. The commencement of the invasion, and at that point, in the crowd several masked members of the audience, cast a genjutsu making the civilian and less trained ninja Kib, Sakura and Sasuke, though to be fair, Sasuke was arrogantly believing that he was immune to the effects of genjutsu because of the Sharingan he activated, while Sakura just plain useless, and Kiba trusted in his nose, only to play for with sleep, fall asleep. Sensing through his host that a genjutsu was activated, the symbiote rippled energy through Naruto's chakra network and disrupted the effects, keeping Naruto alert. Vei looked over the village, as several thought to be hidden Oto and Suna ninja rushed out of the crowd's weapons drawn. The rushing enemy was halted in their progress by arrival of Konoha teams 8 save Kiba, 9 save Neji, as he was already fighting elsewhere, 10 and their Jonin senseis. This included Kakashi for some unknown reason. But Kakashi's appearance became clear when he ignored the invading ninja and charged directly for Naruto, hand-gloved with so much lightning that it made a spear, but he was in striking distance. Naruto had formed his own Pisonic blade and parried with Kakashi's Reikiri. They continued to duel evenly, matching slash for slash, joust for J. All while allies and enemies looked on in protest, for Konoha, or awestruck, for enemies with neither Venom nor Kakashi giving an inch, but this also left them open for a strike. Well, Kakashi was but Venom's spider senses keep him up to date with his situation and area around himself, so when an Odo shinobi went for a jumping katana sloss, Venom bent at the most impossible angle and avoided the strike, whereas the strike, meant for Venom, kept going and sliced into the chest of Kakashi, spraying his blood everywhere. The wound Kakashi received distracted him from his mission, avenge his student, Sharingan and sensei, enough that he left himself open more to a blast of invisible ener, which sent him rocketing into a wall behind him, where he was embedded and knocked out. After blasting Kakashi telekinetically, Venom then turned his attention towards Katana welding ninja, as the ninja then went for another attack, which was guarded Venom's blade and then was countered by a psychic blast, which bowled him into his Odo ninja. Back with the Odo summoning ninja, as the leader of the group finished wiping his hands on the clean rag of material, after he had killed all of his team in order to find the who fucked up the summoning, only to begin clutching his chest as he feels the feeling of blades ripping through his chest and then fell over dead. Yeah, the sinking seal also. Their lives up with each other. Inside the cage box, Orochimaru felt the life of his summoning. At as 1 Ret 17. Team extinguish not that long after they attempted the summoning, but was puzzled where was the member of Manda's brood. What happened? They did it right, so where is Hedorah? He thought, while bending out of the way of his former senseis. Staff Enma as he arrived to assist Tsunade, before he counterstruck with Sanae Jashu, unleashing a torrent of snakes. With the release of snakes, gave Orochimaru time to think, this isn't going to plan, and without the summons, I cannot lay waste to Konoha and achieve my rightful plaque. Hokage, once I rebuild it in my own image, before his need to move again became necessary, as his former teammates delivers an aerial heel drop, to his previously occuspot. Getting more distance, Orochimaru thought it would be better to cut his losses and retreat, so with a slight signal, his sound 4 lowered the barrier and surrounded T. Master, we're leaving, this invasion is a bust, to Yuya, Kidomaru cover our escape, as the two ordered formed seal and commanded, Kuchio's no jutsu, bringing forth Aspidor and 3 fiends called, the Dokis. Once summoned, the spider immediately began to fire off balls of webbing and the fiends charged forth. While the summoners and their lord made their escape, Orochimaru's invasion failed. When he discovered his summoners failed to summon Hedorah, he turned tail and run with his tail between his leg, using the sound 5 sum cover, though none of them lasted long against the punches and kicks of Tsunade Senju. Days later the rebuild was complete and Tsunade was sitting in her office, in Fron. Chunin hopefuls that had participated in the resistance against the invasion and 2 traitors to Konoha, Sasuke and Kakashi, as they did more to help the invaders than do anything against it. Civilian Hatake, Genin Uchiha, Tsunade started, while looking at the 2 in question, before continuing, you have being brought towards me to explain your actions against Konoha shinobi, while adding a little bit of killing intent, which made them sweat and ended with, anything you wish to add for your defense. The question was met with silence from Sasuke, whom had refused to defend his perfectly okay actions, but Kakashi however defiantly replied, they were holding back Sasuke from reaching his TR status of the strongest ninja in Konoha, and the demon brat and his horde teammates insert a glare towards Naruto, Kin, who had been given the place after defecting Fr. Odo and Haku should have died long ago as punishment for the death of Minato sensei, which got growls from the girls and women present. Sasuke was found during the invasion trying to murder the members of shinobi clans like the Hyuga branch family and such, as they were displaying power he believed be his. He also tried to kill his mother, in a self-believed right to punish her for not treating Itachi as a missing ninja. As the women around Kakashi growled at him, Tsunade, while barely holding her own anger, had signaled for her Anbu guards. Once they appeared in a blur of shadows, Su orders, Anbu, take these two into custody, have the Fuinjutsu teams prepare for chakra and Kekkei Genkei sealing, then drop them into a high-security cell. So with that ordered, the Anbu grabbed a hold of the criminals, before whisking them away in a cloud of dust and leaves. While Tsunade was dealing with now known traitors to Konoha, secret members of another traitorous faction of Konoha, were in a root outpost deep under the bowels of Konoha, listening to the conversation in the Hokage's office via a transmission seal. Pale as their carefully constructed plan takes a hammer blow, with Uchiha Sama's power gone, Konoha will lose all of its power and prestige, was all Th. thought. Recovering quickly, due to his own conditioning, the mummy-like man of the group said, Kaharu, Homura, I think it is time to take a more aggressive approach. Stage a co-op. To the others, as they digested what he had said, he then said, it will be the only way to ensure that Konoha is ran as we want it run. When they heard agreed. Now in Otogakure, the hubby Senin placed the lab-like office of his status as Otokage, mulling over his failed invasion and his anger of not being able to kill his sensei. Thou won't admit it. It was his fault, as it was shown that under Tsunade's govern, Konoha was still powerful enough to repel 2 villages and won the day, with minimal injury. The outer outskirts of Otogakure, a member of the Sound 5, Tayuya was receiving a letter from her sister in all but blood, Tsuchi Kin, via her owl messenger summons. Kin's letter to Tayuya read, Dear Tayuya, I know this is a shock, but I've defected to Konoha to be with our love, Naruto-kun, and ask if you are willing to join me, meet M. the border village of Hibiki no Sato, on the 20th day of this month and come alone. Love you, Tsuchi Kin. Knowing that this was her chance to be free from the mad cage she was forced to serve and join her shared love, Naruto, Tayuya quickly made plans to head for Hibiki. Bu was not going alone, and she will be bringing a newly captured girl, that was unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time, knowing that they'll have a new life. Back in Konoha, Tsunade had just dismissed the newly minted chunin and was now leaning back in her seat, savoring saucer of refreshing sake and letting the alcohol soches and pains, caused by having to deal with the now public backlash of her sentences of Sasuke and Kakashi, though it was mainly Sasuke punishment that was cause public to revolt. Hours later, Tsunade made some clones and returned to that day's worth of paperwork, which due to her clones didn't multiply, like her sensei says it does. Was this sight that greets the arrival of said sensei as he arrived to talk about an issue. Entering the office, Sarutobi says, Tsunade-chan, I need to speak to you. Before getting cut off at the legs, as he sees the clones working away at the paperwork and not that her work was less than his own. Raising her head for the signing of an order of chakra metal from Kinzoku no Kuni, for blacksmith, Ken to Tate, Tsunade then says, Why? Sensei, what did you need? Tsunade-chan, you need to stop these unfair punishments on the citizens of Konoha. They are just scared and doing what they think is right, Hiruzen stated, but was rebutted by, so you think it is unfair to dismiss a traitor and give people the benefit of the doubt? Watching as her sensei tried to form a decent argument, and then he repeats the fact that their actions are done out of fear and that they deserve a second chance. This was also rebutted with, you have already give way to many chances and never truly punished them for their first offense. People learn they're in the wrong when they are punished, and your law stated that their punish was execution. If they were to ever act against the law and yet you never enforced your own laws, pausing to let what she said sink in and then said, and you always the council always exceeded your choices. This is the reason people like Fugaku think they'd be better at Hokage, you never enforce your own made laws and never people for breaking them. At the end of it, office. After listening to Tsunade, Hiruzen found his faults ripped out of him and shown to him. Yes, he made a law that was supposed to protect Naruto and give a proper childhood. No, he did not follow through with his assigned punishments, thinking it would cause a civilian rebellion and threaten the safety of Konoha, therefore opting to see Naruto's as an acceptable compromise and not a mass culling of the Konoha populace. After seeing everything before him, Hiruzen knew he had failed and shut his mouth, leaving the office. The days leading up to the 20th day was many filled with Naruto chasing off Jiraiya and other perverts away from popular female meeting spots, mostly from the hot SP and swimming ponds. The people were complaining to Tsunade on how Naruto shouldn't be doing it, but as she hates perverts as much as the next woman and was only help, as the only thing that would keep him from defending a woman's right to have a relaxing day off was a mission that sent him out of the village, with Zabusa and Ha. The 20th came and went, with the Hokage now welcoming both Tayuya and, to her surprise, and Uzumaki, named Karen, to the Konoha forces, but as Tayuya was an Oto ni, she had to be under Anbu probation for a small duration, while sources in Kusagaker had registered Karen as Kia, had allowed her to join with no problem. Tayuya's pro was only 6 months, and after that, she was placed in Anbu as Oni, while Kin had flourished under the tutorship of Yuhi Kurenai, who along with a recently cured Kuramaya, had jumped at the chance to have her join their team. Under Konoha, the former advisors were now foaming at the mouth and had been doing so since they discovered the enemy ninjas that had joined them. Is Tsunade try destroy Konoha? Was the general thought from the ex-advisors, with only Danzo thinking, there are still Uzumaki survives. Remembering his plans that led to the death of Uzushiogakure no Sato and the majority of the royal Uzumaki, which he had made in the belief that Konoha would be invaded by the country An. Danzo in this story is type of person who stubbornly refuses to see anyone outside of Konoha as an ally and can only see enemies, even when there are none. Training had also got back into full swing, as Anko, now the primary user of the snake summons, had started to be trained as a hubby Sennin, as well as apprising the Hokage. The renewed alliance with Manda and his brood, thanks to the alliance between Manda and Ao Sirius, through Naruto. When Naruto was not dealing with perverts or missions, with his team of Zabusa, Haku and Karen, were training too, mostly in the art of Kenjutsu, Ninjutsu, Taijutsu, and Naruto also started to study in the art and science of Fuinge. Outside of Konoha, within the bowels of Rice Country, the snake-like figure, Orochimaru, had just been informed by a member of his lesser science team, that his new Uzum test subject was gone, taken by his own guard, Tayuya, and this pissed him off like nothing else, before ordering, Magus, prepare the communication seal, I need to contact Kabuto and Mizuki before they're captured and have them extracted to Oto, as the scientist bowed and raced off to retrieve the seal. Little did he know that he had already too laden with the interview with both Kin and Tayuya done by Konoha INT had Tsunade order and the arrest of Kabuto and Mizuki. Hours later, Orochimaru was now pacing his office, panicked and pissed off. He had just tried to communicate with Kabuto and Mizuki, but they would not answer, fearing the worst of his plans would be in danger, forced Orochimaru order to mount a rescue mission and sent the remaining members of the active Sound 5 Guard. The members, Sound Fire, were ecstatic to be chosen for the mission, all thinking it would put them into a higher favor, if they could also take down Tayuya and bring her body back for Saint. Well, most of them did. Kimamaru, on the other hand, was given his last mission differently, retrieve Uchiha Sasuke, Kabuto and Mizuki. It was not even an hour later and the Sound 4 was gone from Oto, descending upon Konoha like moths to a flame. Back in Konoha, Team Zabusa was now lending their to a civilian clan, helping them deliver mail order shopping to different clients and receiving the next orders for the next shop, as the other teams did very much the same. With a little training in between to keep from getting rusty. In the T&I, two figures were now standing over a fearful silver-haired figure, whom of which was strapped down on a table. The female of the two figures asked, Mizuki, what Orochimaru's next plan? As snakes came hissing out of her sleeves, preparing to bite him, while the other simply glared at the man on the table, his eye doing the talking. The eyes and the snake, it was too much for the hapless Mizuki, who keeled and blurted out, Orochimaru-sama's next plan of attack is to consolidate his forces, rebuild Floss and probably kidnap Uchiha Sasuke, in a rushed tone, that had the woman pouting, put out by the easiness. With a little more coaxing, Mizuki also spilt his intentions. Stealing the forbidden scroll of sealing, before releasing more information on what Orochimaru had been doing, what he had done and where he was going from there, missing like a bird, and not even an hour later, Mizuki was replaced by Kabuto. Kabuto, however, was a harder nut to crack than Mizuki, as he was recruited by Orochimaru while he was under the employ of Danzo and his Corps, so he was trained resist torture, but even Ninjas had their breaking points, usually it involves breaking a seal on their tongues, and after a good solid 5 hours, Kabuto had squealed the locations of all of Orochimaru's hidden bases, experiments, the names of all his spies within other nations, and finally, Orochimaru's ultimate goal of learning every single Judh world. It was barely night time by the time the Sound Four had arrived at the outskirts of Konoha and were now going over the plans to extract Sasuke, Mizuki and Kabuto, and Kin and Tayuya. By the time they were finished with the plans, it was dark, so dark that it was difficult to see without a torch, but as ninjas they had no need and they each off again, this in time with 2 separate teams, one pair towards the Anbu prison and the other pair was heading for the Uchiha estate. However, unknown to the descending Sound Four, as the crickets chirped within the empty Uchiha estate, before the sound of the most derelict buildings collapsed under th. weight of the poorly maintained structures, neither Makoto or Sasuke used any more than an eighth of the district, and within the creaking rubble, showed the rusted meta bed frames, stoves and cooktop. While on the other side of the village, Makoto was returning to her new room she moved into at the Namikaze Manor, from the bathroom. Was using early, garbed in nothing but a tight-fitting silk bathrobe and a towel in her long black hair, which was wet from her shower. Elsewhere in the study of the Namikaze Manor, Naruto was found poring over books and scrolls, researching the laws that Sarutobi had passed, to find if they were any go. And the results were not good, with a 1 out of every 100 makes Naruto think that the Sandaime was not even readying them and was writing them down to discuss the next council meeting. While Naruto was studying, the rest of the inhabitants were sleeping soundly in their beautiful beds, with Kin and Tayuya awaiting Naruto in the bedroom. Back with Sakin, Ukin and Jirobo, who had just landed within the back area of the Uchiha estate, where they found the place abandoned, and after they searched for their future comrade, they found a notice on the front of the family head's house that read, "Notice of demolition. Due to the arrest and imprisonment of civilian Uchiha Sasuke, as well as the relocation of Jonin Uchiha Makoto, the estate is to be leveled to make way for a new housing for the guests and political parties. Regards, Senju Tsunade, Godime Hokage." After reading that, the 3 heads looked at each other and then with high jump, they headed for the Anbu prison, to regroup and continue their mission. After they left, shadow from under the deck of the patio jumped out, showing itself to be an all-black wolf, that seems to be made of shadows, and then the wolf jumped off in the direction Hokage Tower. Slipping in through the window, the black wolf made its way to the office of the Hokage. Within the office was Tsunade, found herself shouting at the elder Su, defending herself over her decisions to allow the appointment of the former Sound ninjas to serve Konoha as ninjas, as well as her decision to take Uzumaki Karen as her and apprentice, when she was a Kusagakure ninja, though that was the loosest term for it. All argument stopped when a large black wolf barged through the door and said, "Tsunade-sama, we have a problem," before stopping at the audience in the room. Tsunade at the wolf and recognized in as her godson scout wolf summons, "You may speak, Kujmaru." The wolf, Kujmaru, composed himself and reported, "Tsunade-sama, since Makoto-sama had moved in with Naruto-sama, Naruto-sama had me keep an eye on the Uchiha estate and report anyone who had entered the estate to you, out of a Belai. Orochimaru was after the Sharingan and I have spotted 2 people from Orochimaru's personal guard within the estate, finishing with a bow." Digesting the information, me thanking her godson forethought and spoke, "Are they still there?" to the shake of Kujmaru's head, and he said, "They left in the direction of the Anbu prison where Sasu being held," causing the elders to glare at the Hokage, for the reminder of Konoha's loss of power. Guessing where the Sound ninja are going, Tsunade flared her chakra and summoned Anbu, as 5 shadows fell into line in front of the Hokage's desk, with a, "Yes ho. Sama," to which the Hokage orders, "Crab, cat, sound the alert. I want all Chunin and Jonin out searching for these ninjas. Tenzo, Dragon and Eagle, head to Anbu headquarters, help fortify the prison, go." Getting the answer of, "Yes Hokage-sama," and they were off. Outside the Anbu prison, Kimamaru and Kitamaru were just about to enter. Sound echoed across the village, which, like a fire being lit, had every ninja jumping into action. With the village now awake, Kitamaru and Kimamaru cursed their teammates, now they were either caught or spotted, before silently slipping into the duct system and their hunt for those they had being ordered to find and extract. Back with the Kan twins, Sakin and Ukin, and Jirobo, as they jumped to avoid getting caught in the Shadanera head, Shikaku only to be battered to the ground by an enlarged fist, from the Akamichi head, Akamichi Choza, as the head of the Yamanaka clan appeared when the T landed and was waiting to deliver a mind blast jutsu. The jutsu landed causing the two to become disorientated. After their brains were blasted, Shikaku followed up with the Kujimane no jutsu, trapping the pair in his shadows, and then with a well-placed chop, Choza knocked them with a large fist karate chop. While back at Anbu HQ, Kitamaru and Kimamaru were now on the subbasement levels, scanning the cells for their targets, ignoring the other criminals to free them, until they found their first target Kabuto and released him. With a thank you from him, they then headed off to find Mizuki. Not too long after they found Kabuto, they located Sasuke, and not to look a gift horse in the mouth, Kimamaru asked, Sasuke-sama, Orochimaru-sama offers you a way avenge your clan, an apprenticeship with the most power being that rivals that of Uchiha Madara, will you come with us? Sasuke gritted his teeth in answer, Kimamaru T. This is a yes, and used his bone dagger to destroy the lock around the Uchiha's cell, but before Sasuke could open the door, a bolt of energy was shot at the lock and encane ice. I don't think so, Kimamaru, came a voice from behind them. Turning to the voice, both Kitamaru and Kimamaru found the red-tinged black armor of Venom, and Kitamaru said, Venom, you traitor, I'll kill you. But Agent Venom just chuckled and said, how could we be a traitor, when we've never being loyal to Orochimaru, before firing off a bola of web that entangled Kitamaru, and then Venom said, surrender, you are surrounded, as 5 Anbu appeared out of the shadows. Surrender was not in Kimamaru's list of options, as he slashed through the ice of Sasuke's newly locked cell, and Sasuke then walked out with his Sharingan activated, as it then morphed into the Mangekyo Sharingan. With his newly acquired power, Sasuke turned himself to his enemy, and with a breath of unknown knowledge in his mind he commands, out of my way, and when they moved he shouted, Amaterasu, blast them with super high heat black flames. Quicker than the flames were cast, Venom morphed his Sharingan unseen and calmly said, Kamui, creating a vortex which had started to vacuum up the flames, but it was all for naught, as a fresh hole in the roof dictated the escape of the Oto shinobi and Sasu. Knowing that with the village in lockdown, their escape is minimal, and despite this there was still protocol to follow, to which Venom orders, Tenzo call for backup, the resu are with us, come on, web lining to the surface of Konoha, with 4 blurs following behind him. In the village, the rest of Team 11 was now engaged in a fight with Jirob. The Kan twins, whom had woke up and escaped the Ino Shika Cho capture, with the latter activating their curse seals and separating, before Anbu Oni appears, and with help of her flute, she used a powerful genjutsu and trapped them in a world of their worst nightmares. Trapped in nightmares, gave Team 11 the opening need to knock them out once again and slap chakra restricting cuffs on them. With the fight over, a blur had distracted T. And following the blur they saw Sasuke, leading 2 more Oto shinobis to the east side gate, which for some reason was not locked, and with Team 11 not quick enough, th. Ninjas and Sasuke slipped through and disappeared into the darkness of the surrounding forest, which was surprising as Sasuke had not true aptitude in stealth. Losing them in the thicket, Team 11 head back into the village and went to report to the Hokage. Returning to the Hokage, after losing the Oto shinobi and Sasuke, Agent Venom and the Anbu prison guards kneeled before the Godime Hokage, awaiting new instruction. Besides the Hokage were the elder counselors, both of whom were looking for a way to order the retrieval of their precious unharmed in any way, or convince Tsunade that Sasuke was under their secret orders to spy on Orochimaru, but before they could say anything Tsunade spoke, Kujira, Jaga, Same and Inagi, assemble Anbu teams Heya and Hell, have them meet Agent Venom at the East Gate, in authority. As the 4 Anbu dispersed to carry out their order, when Tsunade then turned her attention towards the now unmasked Naruto, where she delegated her orders, Agent Ven. You know what they're up against, so you are to pursue the traitorous Uchiha with the dispatched group and capture him for immediate execution. Then with a pause to ret the glare she was now receiving, as she then said, but if capture is not possible, lethal force is authorized, with that said and Naruto replying, yes ma'am, before erupt a mound of cobwebs. After meeting up with the teams, the Sasuke retrieval teams jumped into the dark green forest, on their search for the death row Uchiha. While unknowingly being followed Army of civilian council born and loyal Jonin shinobi their mission, kill the Anbu and Naruto, and secret the Uchiha back into Konoha, where the council and the elders will. On removing Sasuke's death sentence. Makoto had long since washed her hands with Sasuke, and while she does love him as a mother should, Makoto knows when to end her support of him, and she is more to her home than to the Uchiha way. With the head start by Sasuke, both teams spread out to cover the most ground, and as Naruto had started to swing between the tree, he noticed something off. Sound of the night were gone and it was unnaturally quiet. Suspicious Naruto slowed to a stop on a thick branch of a redwood tree and then closed his eyes, before taking breath of air through his nose and let his symbiote enhanced smell. After taking the scent of his surroundings, Naruto discovers the familiar smells of 5 ninjas, all of whom seem to be converging on his location and radiating an astronomical amount of malice. When Naruto finally opened his eyes, the 5 ninjas arrived surrounding him in a star formation. This was when the lead ninja spoke. Demon, by Council O. You are to surrender and die, which simply got a chuckle from the fully masked blonde. Before the leader spoke again, this is not a joke, you have being a thorn in there. Since your return, take him down. At their orders, the 5 ninja charged at Agent Venom in the belief that they would finally kill him and return the council back to their rightful positions of rules of Konoha. On Sato. The result, however, was a completely different story, as Naruto had let them get 5 feet away from before commanding, Rinnegan, and then at 2.5 feet away, then commanded, Shinra Tensei, while flooding his body with a large amount of chakra. Naruto's technique then expelled the mass of energy that atomized the trees in a 10-foot radius and violently thrown the 5 ninjas 20 feet back. Not prepared for the attack, ninjas flew back and hit the ground hard enough for their world to go black. Floating over the now destroyed redwood he had landed on, Naruto observed his quarry, before producing a prisoner storage scroll, and then sealed the 5 ninja for their trial later. With the task accomplished, Naruto then launched himself skyward using his Senpo, Ryu no Mai, and rocketed towards the Valley of the End, where he could now sense chakra. Ahead of Naruto, approaching the valley, both Kimimaro and Sasuke felt a large source of chakra that was very familiar to the latter, and Sasuke stopped. Noticing his partner stopping, Kimimaro also stopped and asked, Sasuke-sama. When Sasuke turned towards him, Kimimaro noticed his Sharingan active and he said, Dobi is approaching fast, and he most likely won't stop following us, getting the look of agreement, as his partner activated his bloodline and created a pair of bone lance over his arms. Joining his partner, Sasuke drew 2 kunai and got in battle stance, as Naruto landed in front of them. Rising from his crouched landing, Naruto drew his Saiblades and said, Sasuke, for the abandonment of Konoha, you are to surrender to me for disciplinary action. Before his battle stance and continued with, Kimimaro, you are under arrest for trespassing on Konoha land, surrender and keep your honor, or lose and be dragged in uncons. Hearing their options, Sasuke snorted, never Dobi. For both of them, their response was, very well, by order of the Godime Hokage, I sentence you 2 to death, Wicklaw from Sasuke, and then the 2 missing ninja charge at Naruto.